With COVID-19, our bank is getting a lot of requests for mortgage loan deferrals. As a mortgage specialist, I frequently have to do manual calculations to determine the new plan, communicate with the client, and send them an email summary of our conversation along with a password to a site where they can access their information. Our call center agents have to perform the exact same set of tasks. Today, I do calculations in this Excel file, copy the data into this email template, generate a password using this password generator site, and then send an email to that client with all of this consolidated information. Now, my organization has provided me with access to Studio X, a no-code citizen developer tool that can help me automate this task. Here, I have some projects that I've already worked on, and on the right, I have a set of fully functional templates I can use for a new project. This email template looks like it will solve my needs, and we'll call it Mortgage Deferral Summary. Studio X automatically creates an automation for me that takes in a Word template, copies data from Excel, and creates an email draft for me to send to my client. All I have to do is update some of the details. I'll start by changing the location of the Word template to the one that I've already created. Next, I want to update the location of the Excel file to my mortgage calculation file. We'll also change the way it's referenced to say mortgage. And now finally, I need to make sure the right data from my Excel file is selected. For that, I click here, and you'll notice that the file is up to date and all of the various worksheets are loaded automatically. Within the sheet, data that is labeled is also loaded, so I can choose my deferral summary range, and it takes that information and puts it into my Word document by replacing this Excel table text. Next, I want to replace the placeholder image with my company logo. It looks for an alt text and replaces it with the new logo. Here, I'll just use the file that I have already created. The last remaining thing is for me to generate a password for them to access this information through their account. I can automate this using UI automation. I can simply record the steps the automation should take by clicking here and starting the recording. I select the window. Now we only need a 12-character password, so I can click on that text box there, and it recognizes that it's a text box and provides me with a place to input the new value. We'll put 12 and confirm it. Now every time this runs, it will update that text to 12. Next, I want to generate that new password and copy it to my clipboard for use by the rest of my automation. My UI automation is complete. I can save this and return to Studio. And you'll see that all of those password generator tasks are added to this. The last thing remaining for me to do is replace the password text in my template with the password that's in the clipboard. For that, I go to the set of Word activities, choose this Replace Text in Document activity, search for the text password, and replace it with data in the clipboard. Here's the email that's generated from that Word template. And let me update the subject here as well to mortgage deferral email. Save. My automation is ready. I can publish this to Orchestrator so it can be available for everybody to use. I can also access this automation from my UiPath assistant and run it from here. You'll notice that the job has started processing and the email draft is created. Let's take a look. And there, in my Outlook, you can see that the newest email was generated along with the password that was just copied and the Excel table. As you can see, it's easy for anyone to build automations using UiPath Studio X. Now let me put my RPA developer hat on. I've been getting a lot of requests for an easy way to do mortgage calculations from my contact center agents. I've built an automation that can do exactly that. And I see that one of my mortgage specialists has submitted an automation to generate a client email as well. I'm going to use UiPath Apps to build an application that is easy to use for all the client-facing teams. You'll notice that this looks familiar. The contact center agent console that Brandon demonstrated was built using the same platform. Let's create our new app by clicking this New button on the top right. This puts me on a blank canvas that I can use to design my application. We'll start by adding a few controls to this app. We have a large library of controls available out of the box. We'll start by adding an image. For my automations to calculate, I need a couple pieces of information from the customer. First, I need a loan number, so I'll add a label and a text box. And then I also need the number of months they need to defer by, so we'll add a label. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And another text box. And let's add a table as well to show all of that calculated information that we put in our email. The last thing I want to do is add the button that will generate that email draft for me. Now the bare bones of my application are ready. At this point, I can start configuring each of these controls. So we'll start by choosing the image for this application. I click on Image Binding and upload a file from my local desktop and add it to my image binding. Next, we'll rename this label to loan number. We'll rename this other label and the button to create email. Now let's also style these various components so it looks a little bit more presentable. We'll start by styling the image. Let's change the size of that image to be 350 pixels. And you can control the size using various different units. I also want to make this table a little bit bigger. So we'll increase the width of this table to 50% of my application width. And then for buttons and text, we have out-of-box styles available. So I can choose this simple outlined button. I can also center everything by choosing the panel and centering it. So the last thing remaining for me to do is actually bind it to the automations I've already created. For that, I will add a process to my application. Now you can add processes from cloud orchestrators as well as on-premises orchestrators. Mine is in the cloud, so I'll go ahead and select it. It shows me all the processes in my folder. I will choose the two that I want to add and select that. Now I can go back to my main page and start binding my table to the output of that automation. For that, I go back to General, drag a data source. My data source is the mortgage deferral calculator. I have the current loan status, so we pull that in. We pick that current mortgage column and add one more column that has more information. And it doesn't really need a title. There are two more things I need to do. One, I need to run the automation to get this calculation when the number of months is entered. For that, I will go to Events and create an event when the value changes. We have multiple options for what you can do. I'm just going to start a process. The process we want to start is mortgage deferral calculator, and we want to give it some input arguments. These include the loan number, and the value will come from that text box name. And we want to add the number of months deferred. And it's the second text box. Now you can rename the text boxes to have more friendly names as well, so they're easy to refer to. I also want to let users know that something is happening. So I'll show a spinner, leave it visible, and just put a message that says calculating. And then once the process is complete, I want to hide that spinner. The last thing I have to do is generate that email to be sent. So for that, I add another event to run the automation. And this time we'll run the mortgage deferral summary. And when it's completed, I want to just add a little message that lets them know that the email was created. Now my application is ready to run. I can publish it so it's available to everyone, or I can preview it. I enter the loan number, and I'll add the number of months to defer to 3. And as I navigate away, you see that automation starts to run. All the relevant data, including the current mortgage information and the deferral information, is populated really quickly. Finally, I click this Create Email button, And again, you'll see my UiPath assistant running. It runs that mortgage deferral email process. Now let's look at our drafts one more time. And you'll see that new email was created with that new information and password. Now this application can run standalone, or it can also be integrated into that agent console that Brandon showed you. As you can see, with a combination of UiPath's low-code development tools like Studio X and UiPath App Studio, citizen developers can build an automation really quickly in Studio X, share it with their organization, and RPA developers can take these automations and offer a rich user experience, increasing the productivity of all client-facing teams, increasing customer satisfaction as well as employee retention.